Hey, Sarah. You look like you're deep in thought. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, teacher. Yeah, I've been thinking, learning English feels like climbing a mountain without a map. I mean, where do I even start?
Well, you're not alone. A lot of students feel that way. But don't worry, I've got a compass for you. Let's talk about one of the most underrated but powerful tools in language learning: listening.
Listening? That's it? I thought you were going to tell me about some secret technique or magic trick.
Well, it's not magic, but it's pretty close. Listening is the key to unlocking fluency. It's like the backbone of language learning. If you can't understand what people are saying, it's hard to reply, right?
True. But sometimes I listen, and it just sounds like a bunch of noise. Like, I get the blah blah blah, but not the meaning.
That's exactly why practice is so important. Think of listening like training for a marathon. At first, it feels impossible. But if you stick with it, your brain gets stronger. You start recognizing words and phrases, even when they're spoken quickly.
So, are you saying I should just listen to anything and everything?
Sort of, but it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality. Start with content you enjoy, something that keeps you engaged. Podcasts, TV shows, YouTube videos, songs, whatever makes you excited to learn.
Okay. But what if I don't understand half of what they're saying? I feel like I'm missing so much.
It's okay to miss things. Think of it as a puzzle. At first, you only have a few pieces, but as you keep listening, more pieces fall into place. Soon, you'll start seeing the big picture.
It sounds a bit frustrating. What if I just stick to reading instead? At least I can look up words when I don't understand them.
But reading and listening work best together. Reading helps you learn vocabulary and grammar, but listening teaches you how to use them in real-life conversations. Plus, you can't always carry a dictionary around when someone's talking to you, right?
True. Unless I wear a giant dictionary costume for Halloween, I'll be the life of the party.
That would definitely make an impression. But seriously, listening helps you get the feel of the language, intonation, pronunciation, and even cultural nuances that don't come across in written text.
Okay, I get it. Listening is important. But how do I make it less painful? I mean, sometimes my brain just zones out.
Oh, I get it. Here's a tip. Don't force yourself to listen for hours. Start with short bursts, 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and choose topics you're genuinely curious about. Don't make it feel like a chore.
Do you mean I should start with cat videos in English?
Absolutely. Cat videos are universal. Just make sure they're in English and you're already practicing. The idea is to trick your brain into learning without feeling like you're studying.
Hmm, sneaky. I like it.
And when you get more comfortable, try podcasts or audiobooks. If you're struggling, use transcripts. Read and listen at the same time. It's like having training wheels for your ears.
I guess that makes sense. What about accents, though? They're so confusing. One moment I'm listening to an American, and the next it's a Brit saying cheers and blimey. How am I supposed to keep up?
Ah, accents. They're the spices of the English language. Think of them like different flavors. At first, stick to one accent to avoid overwhelming yourself, but eventually, you'll want to branch out. The more you expose yourself to different accents, the more versatile your listening skills become.
I do love spices. But okay, I'll take it one flavor at a time. What's next?
Next, focus on chunking. Instead of trying to understand every single word, listen for phrases or chunks of language. Native speakers often speak in groups of words, not individual words. It's like catching the flow instead of the drops.
So, you're telling me to surf the language waves, not drown in them?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to rewind and replay. Listening multiple times to the same content is not cheating. It's smart learning.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. But what about listening to native speakers talking super fast? Sometimes it feels like they're racing to break a world record.
Oh, the fast talkers are a real challenge. Start with slower, clearer content and gradually increase the speed. You can even adjust playback speed in most apps. Treat it like a game. Level up when you're ready.
I guess I have to practice a lot, huh?
Yup. But remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. Every time you understand a new phrase or catch a joke in English, celebrate. Progress might be slow, but it's still progress.
All right, I'll try not to stress out if I don't get everything right away. Maybe I'll even keep a victory journal for every English thing I understand.
Now, you're talking. A victory journal sounds like a great way to stay motivated. Remember, language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Pace yourself, have fun, and don't forget to enjoy the ride.
Do you mean the language roller coaster? With ups, downs, and a few screams along the way?
Exactly. And I'll be here to cheer you on from the sidelines. You've got this, Sarah.
Okay, I'm ready. What's the next step on this grand adventure?
Let's talk about active listening versus passive listening. Most people think that if they just have English playing in the background, they'll magically absorb it like a sponge. Spoiler alert, it doesn't quite work that way.
So you're saying my background TV in English while I do my laundry strategy isn't the best?
Well, it's not useless, but it's not enough. That's what we call passive listening. You're hearing the words, but you're not fully engaged. For real progress, you need to switch to active listening.
What's the difference?
Active listening means paying full attention to what you're hearing. You're trying to understand, analyze, and even predict what comes next. It's about making your brain work a little harder, like a workout for your ears.
So I'm supposed to be like an English detective, looking for clues in what people are saying?
Exactly. Become a language detective. Focus on keywords, context clues, and how sentences are structured. Don't worry if you don't catch everything at first. The point is to engage with the content actively.
All right, Detective Sarah is on the case. What should I listen to first?
Start with something familiar. If you like cooking, listen to English cooking shows or recipe podcasts. If you're into science fiction, go for podcasts or audiobooks in that genre. Familiar topics make it easier to guess meanings even when you don't know all the words.
That's a good point. I guess it's easier to follow when I kind of know what's going on.
Exactly. And here's another pro tip. Shadowing.
Shadowing? Like following someone around?
Kind of. In language learning, shadowing means listening to someone speak and trying to repeat exactly what they say, right after they say it. It's like echoing them, but in real time.
Oh, that sounds intense. Isn't that super hard?
It can be challenging, but it's one of the best ways to improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. You're training your mouth and ears to work together, mimicking native speakers as closely as possible.
All right, I'll give it a try. But if I start sounding like a robot, it's your fault.
Deal. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to get used to the sounds and the flow of the language. You can even do it with slow or simplified content at first.
Speaking of slow, is it bad if I use the playback speed feature to slow things down? Sometimes native speakers talk like they're in a race.
Not at all. Slowing down the audio is a great way to train your ear. Start slow, then gradually increase the speed as you get more comfortable. Think of it as language training wheels.
I feel like this is turning into a gym session for my ears. Do I need to warm up too?
You could say that. A good warm-up is listening to simple, familiar content before diving into something more challenging. It gets your brain in English mode. And if you're really into it, you can even hum along to songs or repeat tongue twisters to get your mouth ready.
Okay, I'll start with a warm up, then shadow some podcasts, and maybe throw in a few cat videos for fun.
Perfect plan. And don't forget about podcasts that are designed for English learners. They're often slower and use simpler vocabulary, which makes them a great practice ground.
Yeah, but what if I want to dive into real English? Like, not the textbook stuff.
Great question. At some point, you'll want to transition to more authentic content. Start with shorter segments of real-life English, like news clips, interviews, or movie scenes, and break them down.
Break them down? How do I do that?
Listen to a short clip, maybe a minute or two. Write down what you think you heard. Then, check the transcript if there is one. Repeat the process until you understand the clip fully.
So, it's like doing a language dissection?
Exactly. You're breaking it down into manageable pieces. This way, you're not overwhelmed, and you get to focus on the tricky parts.
Hmm, that sounds like it could work. But sometimes I get bored listening to the same thing over and over. Any tips for keeping it fun?
Mix it up. Don't stick to one type of content. If you get bored with podcasts, switch to songs, audiobooks, or even English comedy shows. Humor can make it a lot more enjoyable. And speaking of humor, don't be afraid to laugh at your own mistakes.
Oh, I've got plenty of mistakes to laugh at.
That's the spirit. Mistakes mean you're learning. And here's a fun activity. Try watching English stand-up comedy. It's challenging because comedians often play with language, but it's a great way to improve your listening skills and learn slang.
Stand-up comedy? I don't know. What if I don't get the jokes?
That's okay. Even if you don't get every joke, you'll still pick up on pronunciation, expressions, and cultural references. Plus, when you finally do get a joke, it's like a mini victory.
All right, I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll even try to tell a joke in English one day.
Now that's a challenge. But go for it. Speaking of challenges, here's another technique. Dictation. Listen to a short clip and write down exactly what you hear. It's a great way to focus on details.
Isn't that a little old school?
It is, but it works. Dictation forces you to pay attention to every sound, and it helps with spelling too. Sometimes the old school methods are still around because they're effective.
Okay, I'm officially convinced that listening is important. But what about when I don't have time to sit down and focus?
Great question. That's where passive listening can be useful. Listen while you're doing other things. Cleaning, cooking, commuting. You might not catch every detail, but you're still exposing yourself to the language, which is valuable.
So, a mix of active and passive listening is the way to go?
Exactly. Balance is key. Active listening when you can fully focus, and passive listening when you're on the go. Both play a role in building your listening skills.
All right, I think I've got it. So now my plan is to mix active listening, passive listening, shadowing, dictation, and watching comedy. That's a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but you don't have to do everything at once. Experiment, see what works for you, and have fun with it. The most important thing is to stay curious and enjoy the journey.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot. But if I get stuck, you'll be there to help, right?
Absolutely. I'm just a call away. And remember, mistakes are welcome. They're a sign that you're trying something new.
Thanks, teacher. This is starting to feel like a real adventure. Detective Sarah is ready to solve the mystery of English.
I have no doubt you'll crack the case. Now, let's get started. What's the first thing you're going to listen to?
Hmm. I think I'll start with an English podcast about mysteries. That way, I can practice my detective skills and learn English at the same time.
Great choice. Let's make it happen.